Even Franklin Delano Roosevelt back in 1933, he said, the real truth is that a financial element in the large centers has owned the government ever since the days of Andrew Jackson. And the guy that was on the House Banking and Currency Committee in 1932 that saw this one coming, Louis McFadden, he was the chairman of the House Banking and Currency Committee at the time. He said the sack of the United States by the Fed is the greatest crime in history. Every effort has been made by the Fed to conceal its powers, but the truth is the Fed has usurped the government. I appreciate you coming up on short notice, Mr. Magdoff. Your book, again, is The Great Financial Crisis, Cause and Consequence. I appreciate you coming on the program today on such short notice, and I want to have you back on the other issues that you're expert in as well, and that's farming and food, if we can do that at a later date.
I'd be very happy to.
Well, thank you very much for your time, sir.
You're very welcome.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. We'll be back, and maybe Robbie will talk next hour. I know he had some questions, but he's such a polite guy. At any rate, second hour of the National Intel Report with your phone calls, 800-313-9443 with Mr. Robert Chapman, Mr. Robbie Noel, and your host, John Stadtmiller. Back, ladies and gentlemen, second hour of the National Intel Report. I'm your host, John Stadtmiller, and this is a special edition of the National Intel Report. If it's Tuesday, that means Mr. Robert Chapman of the International Forecaster is with us. Mr. Robbie Noel out there in arid Zona. And his program is The Flip Side, and that airs on this network following this program, Monday through Friday from 6 to 7 p.m. Central Time. I was going to suggest to our little co-hoster, our guest there, Mr. Magdoff, that I'm going to give him a couple issues of the International Forecaster because I don't think he realizes how deep this really is.
Yeah, can I just correct Bob or inform Bob about something that he may not know?
Hey, be careful. He's my dad.
Well, Bob, last week, that great financial soothsayer announced that the Depression ended last week.
Who said that?
Oh, that's Mr. Kramer.
Oh.
So
from his lips to God's ears.
I'm glad that you caught that there, Bob.
Well, thank you very much. And I did want to say one thing. I couldn't get in. Whether you know it or not, my line was breaking up pretty badly. I had to call in when you were finishing off with Fred. But and you got to listen to this carefully, listeners. The new figures that came out on unemployment late last week, they included U6 and U3. I didn't pick up U3 because I think U6 is the most important number. And U6 is not the 8.5% unemployed. It's the 8.5% unemployed plus all the people who are not getting checks from the state anymore and all the people who are, quote, discouraged. And the official figure for that for March was 16.2%. And if you do the figures that we do based upon the formula of 1980, that figure is 19.2% unemployed. Now, the other person that does this sort of work is John Williams, and he's a splendid economist, quite frankly, better than I am. And he says the figure is 19.8%. So unemployment is a shade under 20%. And wages are not going anywhere. The balance of trade has improved, but for the most part because we're importing less. People are pulling their consumer horns in. And so this situation will continue to deteriorate, but not at an accelerated rate. I think it'll be a slow, grinding, downward move for the next year and a half. And the reason is that we're going to have stimulus starting next month, and we have the monetization coming, both of which will bring higher inflation, which hurts the wage earner. And we also, in the following year, because it's an election year, they planned it this way, the stimulus will be larger. And so the GDP numbers will probably go something like this. Last quarter of last year, a minus 6.5 or whatever it is. First quarter, the same. Second quarter, probably minus 6%. The second half of the year, probably minus 4%. Might even get down to minus 2. The following year, it'll probably coast along even.
Well, the recession, according to them, just started last fall, and I want to remind folks out there, during the Great Depression, unemployment was around 30%. We're sitting at about 20 right now.
For Real Talk Radio, you're listening to the National Intel Report with your host, John Stachmiller.
Out of the Wizard of Oz, in the middle of a cyclone, the air is generally still, but the great pressure of the wind on every side of the house raised it up higher and higher until it was at the very top of the cyclone, and there it remained and was carried miles and miles away. By the way, do you remember the little monkeys in the Wizard of Oz? All we own, we owe them. They were talking about the banks. That was a wonderfully crafted movie, very cryptic in its message, but those that picked apart the Wizard of Oz, Toto, something tells me we ain't in Kansas no more. Let's go to the phones. Don in Nevada. Hello, Don.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
So far, not so good, but Don, what do you have in mind?
Well, it's what we make out of it, isn't it?
You mean lemons to make lemonade?
Well, yeah.
I ain't got no water, I ain't got no sugar, man. I can't afford it.
Three quick comments.
Yeah.
Mr. Chapman so eloquently spoke about the slow nature of the slowdown, and it reminds me of the frog in the pot syndrome. If they threw hot water at us, we'd all jump, but if they just turn it up gradually like a frog in a pot, they'll boil all of us.
Don, I'm sweating right now, man. I know hot water when I sees it. When I see the steam coming off, I know not to dip my toe in it.
The second point, I was trying to get to your guest today to ask him what he meant by the extreme power that the bankers have over the government. You would think that the government could just basically shut the banks down with their legislative power over the Federal Reserve System, just to pay it off and shut it down. I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I did the Louis McFadden quote there.
Yeah. I don't get. I was hoping to ask him what he meant by the power.
The oligarchs.
Yeah.
The Illuminati. Come on, let's get with it.
Okay. Did you gentlemen, did you all read the article that was so nicely put on the web page on the local currencies coming into vogue again?
No, I missed.
USA Today wrote an article.
Today.
You have it up on the Republic Broadcasting website?
Well, I'll thank my webmaster for doing that. I've been so busy today, I haven't been able to look at it.
Well, yeah, but there's local currencies coming into vogue now. People are trying to prop up local economies with local currencies, and I even knew one for years ago out of Oregon way up in the Columbia River Gorge called River Hours. So I was just wondering what you all thought about local currencies starting to come back in. See, years ago they were doing this, and it kind of died off, but they seem to be coming back, like Ithaca Hours up in Ithaca, New York, by Cornell University.
Yeah. Oh, look, barter and trade, no question, is making a dramatic comeback.
So I just thought it was pretty neat that was up on the website talking about local currencies coming back into vogue. And I guess the last parting thing is I called Harry Reid's assistant today here in Nevada and thanked him very humbly for helping to destroy our economy.
Well, and there's something to consider, Don. We had to get rid of the Norfed. Was there any doubt on anybody's mind about the timing on this one? Because a lot of people knew about the Norfed dollar, and those were receipts. As it used to be, those were receipts for actual stuff sitting in a vault that was worth something. I mean, timing.
Yeah, don't go there.
What? Don't go.
Listener, seeing that you're in Nevada, you might call Harry's office back and ask him if he's going to vote for the legislation to put about 6,000 workers out of work in Nevada and mining.
Yeah.
Well, they gave Bush gave the concession on Round Mountain, Nevada, to Kinross Gold, a Canadian company.
Yeah, and I noticed that Kinross also got the Aurelian property in Bolivia, which the owners of the company, Canadian company, were essentially forced to sell out to Kinross.
Yeah.
So Kinross has the same connections that Barrick does within the Illuminati.
Is that why it's easier to get Canadian Maple Leafs than it is to get Gold Eagles?